We are back on a happy hour 2 days in a row with our friend, our legal expert, ready to do his commercial.
And that's why I'm happy.
Live on TV. You want to look in the camera and tell about Moskowitz LLC, Steve?
I would be delighted to talk about Moskowitz LLP and any tax misunderstandings that you may have with the government.
We will get to that.
Why won't you tell us about LLC? What are you hiding?
Well, because we have an LLP, but if you want an LLC, I can form one for you.
No, we're talking about the one you have that you're not telling us about.
That's what you'd like to know.
Yes, it is.
Well, this is getting off to a good start, Cal. You want me to jump in
Good
here?
start.
Sure.
You're out of order, Rado.
Oh.
Draymond Green, the Warrior star,
A fine gentleman.
has reached out through to the trademarking of the term Hampton 5. Now, we know the nickname of the five most prominent Golden State Warriors is the Hamptons 5. I don't have to tell you the whole story, but our audience knows the story. So he actually did this like 1 year ago, and we're just finding out. So just tell me about the process of getting a trademark in this country, and does it matter if he has the Hampton or the Hamptons? If I wanted to step in right after that and try to get the trademark on the Hamptons 5, would they allow that or no?
It matters a lot, and sometimes what you have to do is make sure that it's not a word in general usage. For example, Jell-O and Xerox almost lost that because the court started to say, you know, that name has become generic, and those companies just barely were able to keep it. So that's what you have to watch out for. And sometimes somebody tries to do that, and it's a general word. That's what you have to watch out for.
Is there anything about the fact that it's a geographical site that makes it public use no matter what?
Still another problem, because you have to show that basically you're not infringing on something like that. So it's a problem. It's not saying that, you know, anything is impossible, but it's a real problem.
So he didn't come up with it. Obviously, Tim Kawakami of The Athletic came up with that name for the Hamptons 5, the five players.
On this network.
On this very network. He doesn't want to trademark it. He can no longer do it anyways because the window is closed. However, the team is already selling shirts that say Hamptons 5. So if Draymond files a final paperwork on this, is that close? I mean, Hamptons, is that close enough in which the merchandise then goes to him, the profits? I mean,
some lawyers can have a good case out of that, because that's the next thing is when you use something. We've done other ones where somebody had something and we showed a symbol for something and saying, well, wait a minute, is it close enough? And you see that all the time with the record companies.
Yeah, LeBron and his barbershop thing.
Exactly.
With Nick Saban, yeah.
And you see the record company say, well, this record is a copy of mine. No, it's not, and the jury listens. There's an awful lot in law. It's not like physical science where 12 good people get together and make a decision.
How do you go about getting this, a trademark in our country? Because did it take 12 months to obtain it?
Once again, lawyers answer, it depends, because when you go, normally you go to a specialist trademark attorney, but what happens, you go in and you show, first of all, nobody else has it. It's not confusing with something that's close to that, and it's not something that's a general word that you can't. And then they say, okay.
All right, in our next story, former 49er safety Eric Reid has filed a collusion grievance against the NFL over his employment status, which remains with no job. He became a free agent this offseason and has had just one visit with the team, Cincinnati Bengals, in which their owner actually met with him and asked him about his protest of the national anthem. Would he continue to kneel? That obviously is a violation of the NFL rules. And we've talked about this even with Colin Kaepernick. This is two teammates, former teammates, who continue to be out of work. Colin Kaepernick, actually, they deposed Robert Kraft today in his case. Does this add, I guess, the fact that now you have two guys that can't seem to get a job, and this conversation of whether they're kneeling or not is coming up with other teams? Seattle also pulled back an offer for Colin Kaepernick to visit because of that, or reportedly. Does this add value to Cap's case as well?
The big deal, as long as each team makes its independent decision, is fine. As an employer, if somebody comes to see me and says, I want a job, I don't have to hire anybody unless there's a reason of discrimination or a conclusion. So if I owned a sports team and I say, you know what, I don't want you on my team, that's fine. I don't have to have him. I don't have to have him because I don't like his looks. I don't like the fact that he does anything else. Where the problem comes about, if it's a protected class where you say, I'm not going to hire you because of your religion, or it's something where you talk to another owner and say, hey, look, this guy John Smith, let's get together. I'm not going to hire him. You don't hire him.
Collusion. One or more teams. We need multiple teams.
Well, you need one more to collude with. But as long as you don't do it, as long as you say, I've made my own decision. Now, I'm not involved in any of these sports teams, but we all know from the general news this is going on. So the fact that multiple owners, probably all owners know it, doesn't mean that they got the. I have that information too, but I didn't collude with any of those
It's
guys.
not a coincidence that the two first teammates that started doing it are both now without a job. And Eric Reid is a much better safety than you might say Colin Kaepernick is quarterback.
But again, as a business owner, there's no law that requires you to hire anybody. The most talented person in the world can come to you for a job, and the business owner says, I don't want you. That's fine, as long as he doesn't say it for a wrong reason. If he says, I don't want you, period, that's fine. I don't want you because you're a member of the X religion, that's not fine, or the collusion. But if you just don't want somebody, that's fine. And as far as collusion, what collusion would be needed? Everybody watches him and knows this.
On a slightly different subject, Colin Kaepernick's people are going to depose Robert Kraft sometime in the next few days. I believe it's now the 4th or 5th owner that they've deposed. Is there a danger at one point that you're almost getting too much information, or are they asking multiple people this just to see if there's any variance in their stories?
So what happens with a depot that's all part of discovery? Discovery is much broader than what's admissible evidence in a courtroom. So there's a lot of latitude there. And basically, it's pretty much a fishing expedition where somebody's going there and say, well, let's find out what he has. Let's ask him the questions. And they're looking for him to say something that would give him ammunition. But the bottom line is, like so many other things in law, it depends. What's he going to say? If he said, yes, I confess, I mean, it is under oath. If he says, yes, I confess, I had a backroom meeting with somebody, then that would blow the case. But if he says, look, I made my own decision, I didn't collude with anybody, I don't want that guy, that's fine.
What about, okay, I'm going to put it in female terms. If I was being interviewed and somebody said, are you planning on having a baby anytime soon?
Boy, is that illegal.
But isn't that the same thing as Eric Reid being asked by an owner, are you planning on kneeling and continuing in protests? And that clearly being a factor in his mind as to whether or not he was going to offer him a job?
Legally, those are two very different things. Because, first of all, the women's issues are protected at law, but right now you're not protected from kneeling, and this is a business decision.
The NFL law rule is that kneeling is allowed. The actual NFL itself has policy.
It's allowed, but that doesn't mean that an owner of a team has to hire him. The fact that something is allowed doesn't mean that you have to do it. Smoking is allowed, but it doesn't mean I have to do it.
Well, individual teams cannot change rules that contrast the league's
but they're not
rules.
changing the rules. So if an existing player wants to do it, that's one thing. But you don't have to hire somebody. That's the big difference. There's no law that says you must hire somebody.
But if they're not hiring them based on a rule in which they're trying to change that the league allows and is acceptable, that just seems similar.
You know, I can see where you might feel that way, but legally, that distinction at least hasn't been made in any court case, and basically the owner is just falling back to the general, I can hire anybody I want, as long as you're not discriminating against somebody.
Seems like discrimination to me.
Well, you know, it depends which side you're on. If
Maybe they're not great
might
football
make that,
players anymore.
What if Eric
Maybe that's the issue.
or there could be things where, look, the guy's bad for the team.
Or they're just not great players.
or they're not great players.
players.
But the worst safety in the league, like Eric Reid is
I didn't
like
say
in the
the
bottom.
worst safety
But
in
I'm
the league,
saying,
but I
how many
wouldn't-
guys have
Ron
jobs
Parker's
right
a
now
much
that
better
are a
safety
lot
than
worse
Eric
players?
Reid, and he doesn't have a job right now.
How many guys?
What if Eric Reid were pregnant?
We would be doing a very different show, and you'd probably want a medical doctor instead of me.
Well, yeah, but
You would
you
have a right to play free safety
That would be very
with
interesting.
child.
Let me,
I think-
if that happens, I'll clear my schedule. I'll be in here, and we'll talk about it.
Steve Moskowitz, we appreciate the time. More drama
Always a
last
pleasure.
night at AT&T Park. Brandon Crawford kicked out for dropping his bat. That's right. We'll talk about it next.
Must be collusion.
Someone as